You genuinely do not hate scalpers enough, and you can never hate them enough. Literal leeches of society. As if rising inflation hadn't already screwed prices up enough, scalping has made any hobby, not just cars or Pokemon cards, every single hobby now is a living hell the past few years. So what is scalping? Scalping is when some loser purchases as much of an item possible right when it releases, usually with a botting program with no intention of actually using said item, but rather to just flip it at a much higher cost to people who do want or need it but no longer can buy it since they just purchased the whole supply in a split second. Of course, scalping isn't always online. However, it's even more loser behavior when it happens in person because it usually involves really sad and pathetic actions like these fat Reddit moderators pushing children over in grocery stores. Hell, some losers even commit armed robbery over it. People will scalp anything these days. Did you know people even scalp IKEA furniture? Like, sure, you could argue that furniture has more practical uses than like a Pokemon card or any trading game card for that matter, but this actually still blew my mind because it means that there's like a large enough demographic for scalpers to literally scalp anything. Like, remember back when these losers also scalped toilet paper and hand sanitizer during the pandemic, and people actually defended them with the annoying cope of, they're just being businessmen. It's just simple supply and demand. Haha. And then those same losers had a shocked face when companies simply just drove up the supply and then boom, crashed their prices, and a lot of those losers got stuck with thousands of dollars worth of hand sanitizer that they couldn't sell anymore. And I'm just gonna throw this out there. Being a real businessman means establishing producers, supply chains, and making or designing the products to begin with, or hiring a group of people to do so. It doesn't mean buying an existing product, having no control over its original initial supply and production, and then just charging exorbitant prices for it. That's just false scarcity. All it takes is one corporation to just crank up the production again, and there goes the prices, and that has destroyed so many of their lives. And honestly, I'm all for that. That's funny. At the end of the day, scalping is just a really crappy form of drop shipping, and I'm tired of pretending like these scalpers are some sort of mad genius businessmen who mastered hustle culture when I know for a fact they're all rocking the Discord moderator build.
Wife and her boyfriend
I'm
are in the
trying
car
to get that bread, man.
Please.
How am I gonna make that bread?
And this is all over cards, by the way. Like, I know it has value, just like how jewelry at the end of the day is a shiny rock that we humans assigned arbitrary value to, and people rob that, right? But you gotta admit, this just sounds way worse and honestly way funnier. Like if a jewelry thief ended up in prison, they might still be like some genius heist dude who like is probably well respected by the other prisoners. But genuinely imagine some clown gets locked up over Pokemon cards, and you already know that these buffoons are gonna just get their cheeks clapped, gapped, and creamed by the rest of the inmates when they find out their stupid behavior. Like, speaking of their lies, that's another cope that I always hear is like, oh, but I'm just trying to make a living, bro. This day and age, just gotta grind any way you can to make some money. I hear people justify scalping with that. And like, no. See, the problem is this actively makes other people's lives worse. That's why this isn't like a good way to make a living. That's essentially a criminal. And as I stated before, some of them literally are doing crimes. Like, these MFs will do anything but just get a normal job. In fact, I'd rather someone be unemployed than do this garbage. Like, legit, there's no long-term income stability from this career because, like I mentioned earlier, all it takes is for a manufacturer to either release a new batch of a new good that's more desirable, or to just randomly release a rerun of the current batch of a good that you're currently scalping, and it completely crashes your prices. And now you're stuck with a bunch of inventory that you can't sell at ridiculously scalped prices, and instead have to sell at a ridiculous loss. The hand sanitizer and toilet paper example during quarantine is the funniest one I can think of, but it did happen to people who overly held on to GPUs even when Bitcoin mining started to slow down. At the end of the day, every so-called successful scalper I see flexing on TikTok is just some dude who made one or two big sales, like, oh wow, $4,000, crazy, wow, good job, little bro, then chases that high forever, never able to replicate it. Trying to predict and learn scalping markets is genuinely way more effort because they're just so much more volatile than just learning the stock market, which, by the way, is infinitely more profitable and better yet, also more stable. Of course, the best thing to do if you want a stable source of income, if you're, I'm just trying to make a living, bro. Just get a job. And I deeply apologize for jump scaring all the unemployed viewers with that word. But just know that I genuinely appreciate all y'all unemployed viewership, and I would rather have you guys do nothing for society than actively do something that harms society. So like this video if you're enjoying it so far, subscribe for more rants. Back to the video. And I genuinely wish corporations would do something to stop scalping, and it seems over time they have implemented more measures like buying limits that can be quickly subverted with just making a whole bunch of fake emails and fake accounts. But the in-person buying limits are always my favorite because you know these Discord mods hate going out in public. And by the way, scalping does negatively affect corporations as well, so this is something they should actually be on the side of consumers with, because they don't see a lick of the profits from the scalpers either. It's kind of like when jerkwad car dealerships who mark up entry-level cars to the moon are completely ruining the whole point of a manufacturer's intention of making an affordable car to begin with. Speaking of car dealers though, car dealerships.
Your bill, sir.
What? 100?
Because the only thing worse than a loser scalper is a government-sanctioned loser scalper. If you're young enough and you haven't bought a car yet, boy oh boy, am I about to tell you the minefield of a world that is buying a car. And I'm tired of pretending that car dealers aren't just legally protected scalpers. Like, they're mandated to exist by federal law, by the way. That's why we can't just buy direct from manufacturer, because that's something I always see people saying, like, how come we can't just buy from factories? Real talk though, why does MSRP exist if no car dealership follows it anymore? Can we stop calling it manufacturer's suggested retail price and start pushing for it to be called manufacturer's mandated retail price, and then actually have a law that enforces car dealers to sell it at the prices mandated? I don't think that's government overreach either, since remember, there's already a law that mandates the dealership's existence that we have to go through. So if we're already forced to go through these dealers, can we at least get another law that protects us from their stupid, evil scalping and markups and awful pricing? Why isn't shopping for anything else like this? Why is it that when I see a $4 loaf of bread on the grocery store shelf, it's still $4 at the register, and I don't need to negotiate tooth and nail over its price with the cashier? But buying a car is still the only thing we treat like a medieval market stall, where it's just an absolute free-for-all, constant speech checks, tons of negotiation, and a lot of scamming and a lot of scalping and a lot of marking up. The crazy part is, right, the grocery store is also a middleman, just like a car dealer is. It's also not direct from manufacturer. And by the way, I get why direct from manufacturer doesn't work for all these products, because having consumers visit a dedicated bread store from bakers who only sell bread, then another one like the dairy guy for milk, and then another, farmer for selling eggs, that'd be really annoying. So we have these middlemen, in this case a grocery store, that serves as a vendor to hold all of those goods simultaneously, that we don't constantly have to buy direct from producer or direct from manufacturer, because that would just be too much commuting, right? I understand that's what car dealers were supposed to serve for. They serve as a middleman, especially in the case of warranty repairs. If a recall happens, you don't just flood the deal, you don't flood a manufacturer's lot with all the recalls, you take it to individual dealers first. So my issue isn't that these middlemen exist. Having said that, because this middleman exists and because we're forced to go through it, and unlike any other shopping situation where the price stated is the price we pay, cars are the only one where when you go to these dealers, two consumers can go in, look at the exact same product, and even crazier, can go to the exact same dealership at the exact same location, see the exact same list price, but be given two entirely different prices. You can actually try this out yourself without having to buy the car, so you don't need to have like 60 grand on you to do this experiment, because every dealer lets you walk in and you can ask for a printed paper with the final price breakdown, fees, and everything. And they usually sit you down a bit, try to gauge why you're interested in the car, and they do profile you. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they do 100%. People lie when they say like, oh, we live in a really inclusive society where there's shut up. They profile, they 100% profile you. Every time I've done this for my friends when helping them shop for cars, I always get the lowest price for them, because they go in on their own first, get the paper handed to them after talking for an hour, show me the paper, and I go, this is bullcrap, this fee you don't need, this fee you don't need. Like, good example, right? The amount of car dealers and even motorcycle dealers that try to charge freight and assembly fees on a used vehicle, a vehicle that is already on their lot that was traded in by someone else. So to explain this for people who are wondering why this is a big deal, a used car car does not to be shipped. Therefore, there shouldn't be a freight fee. It was dropped off by the previous owner who traded it in. Usually, sometimes they do buy used cars from auctions. I still think it's a scam. I still think you can negotiate freight away. You can negotiate this one down. Second one, when I talked about assembly fees, this one is just total BS. Any dealer that does this is trying to pull a fast one. A used car is fully assembled. It's not like a new car and the dealer usually has to just do really simple things like put on the mirror. Sometimes they even put on the aero kits because usually splitters and spoilers can get damaged in the trailer. So manufacturers don't put those on the assembly line. The dealer has to. And again, like this fee makes sense for a new car because a new vehicle had to be assembled, but a used vehicle was already assembled by another dealer. There's no assembly that occurs here. And there are a whole bunch of other fees that they'll try to rip you off on. I really don't want to yap about it here. There are a lot of other videos you can watch for car buying guides that are going to go way more in depth for things you should look for. And some of it is just genuine methods. Like I have one that talks about like the Foursquare method and how to not get ripped off by APR, because that's another thing they'll try to rip you off with. But fundamentally, the reality is these numbers on paper are going to be wildly inconsistent between buyers. Like some of them will genuinely fold under zero pressure if you just ask them. And to be fair, they just want to see if you catch it to begin with. So that's why, like, even for introverts, just ask questions of what the fee is for. If none of us buy these scalped prices, then scalping prices doesn't work. And that's like the other side of the coin when it comes to scalping or marking things up in general. As much as I want to hate scalpers, which I do, and you can never hate them enough, the suckers who buy things at scalp prices, especially the losers who buy cars at 2x markup and then flex on Reddit going, you're all just brokies that you ain't like me. I never understood that corporate cuckold mindset. In this case, it's a dealership fleshlight mindset, like genuinely total L behavior. And a lot of them, by the way, despite using the word brokie, they themselves are the brokies. I've also got a whole video called the Brokie Epidemic that one's funny. This one I really recommend. If you don't like boring numbers, this is a good video, okay? It's very digestible because I'm so sick of these people making the rest of us have to go through awful prices because they're willing to stomach literal greed. Thankfully, there is some light at the end of the tunnel from all things. It's actually coming from the corporations and manufacturers this time. Car manufacturers are starting to implement punishments to these car dealers if they constantly keep attempting to mark things up. And eventually they're going to lose allocations for certain models, like Chevy does this with the Corvette. And some manufacturers took it a step further and even punish customers who are trying to instantly flip it, since customers can also be scalpers, as we discussed for the rest of the video. But dealerships make it where when customers are caught scalping, they will straight up remove the car's warranty entirely. And this does ruin that car's sale value because it's tied to its VIN. Basically, that VIN gets blacklisted, kind of like when video games ban people's IP for when they start hacking. And this genuinely should be standardized by more car manufacturers. And I hope a lot of car manufacturers, I hope it's just adopted by all of them, because this is a really good way to deal with jerkwad dealers. Just take away their allocations and deal with the stupid scalping customers. Just take away their warranty.
You charged me 3 times.
But do you want to know what's even worse than government sanctioned scalping though? Corporations getting in on it. So whereas I think car manufacturers are moving in the right direction, remember how I talked about grocery stores and inflation at the start of the video, and how a few paragraphs ago I was literally like, yeah, at least grocery prices make you pay what's listed. What if I told you that might be changing because some stores are trying to introduce dynamic grocery pricing? That is right. Now even grocery stores are going to scalp prices on the literal food that you need to live. This isn't a week-to-week thing or even a location-to-location thing. That's something that has existed. I'm aware of that. This is literally a live time pricing adjustment. And what's even more evil is that it differs customer to customer over the exact same product purchased at the exact same location within the same day. And it's different for each company with what they're planning on, but I'm going to tell you some of the more evil ones. Some of them are literally going to accomplish this via surveillance cameras that send information and shopping patterns to these AI-powered systems that track your specific shopping patterns and behaviors and will mark up items accordingly during times of high demand or when it knows you're shopping, like when you typically go to a store. And this is like some form of, this is genuinely just corporate sanctioned robbery at this point. Like, brother, this is why RAM prices are going up, to power AI systems to further drive up the prices of the literal food we need to eat. When will these tech bros ever be satisfied? They are actually just trying to extinct humanity at this point. And yeah, some stores are trying to mask it and be more vague about what it will do. Like, oh, we're just using these to like run some experiments, or oh, it's gonna help reduce grocery waste. But then you just have companies like Kroger that just boldly state, yeah, so we introduced this because it will optimize our profits. Boom, absolutely shameless. It may as well have just said, we just want to see how many ways we can keep squeezing every single last penny out of consumers and see how much longer we can get away with it. I know this has existed for airline seats and event tickets for quite some time now, but those are non-essentials. Most people do not need to actually go to a concert. That's not a necessity in life. And with airline tickets changing on a day-to-day basis, makes sense. You know, unpredictable weather, holiday seasons can drive up prices. Again, also not a pure necessity on a day-to-day basis. But food, meanwhile, is literally a necessity. You don't eat, you die, right? Like, I get that inflation makes food cost more over the course of, like I said, you know, weeks, months to years, and location is going to be different, but there's just something so deeply dystopian. It also keeps track of weather, time of day, and they even say some of them are going to incorporate facial recognition technology to gather demographic information and tailor prices accordingly. First off, I'm just going to say this. Is that not just a really complex way of saying discrimination based on looks? Like, what the hell? Am I on the crack pipe? Like, that's just a blatantly prejudiced description in the most tech bro jargon possible of, yeah, we're going to use this facial recognition software to keep track of things like your race, your demographics, your socioeconomic standings, and tailor prices accordingly to your looks. This is stupid. And in no universe is this okay. Like, why do I deeply feel like this system is extremely corrupt and it's just going to make rich richer and poor poor? Thank goodness, just like with the whole car scalping issue, this one also has a light at the end of the tunnel, because there are some states that are trying to ban this garbage preemptively or actively making laws to prevent these surveillance systems because they're a complete violation of consumer privacy. They're a violation of many things for consumers, but generally this nationwide should be banned. Like this type of technology should not even get off the ground. It's just stupid. It's beyond stupid. It's pure evil. Anyways, that's it for your bi-monthly doomer news. I'll be moving soon, so apologies for the slower uploads. If you do hate scalpers, and like this video and share it to your least favorite Discord moderator. Go check out my Brokie Epidemic and subscribe for future situation updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.